That clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
He was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you,
that was the question that we asked him.
You didn't show that, and meaning and engaging in personal grievances and it being about him instead of the American people. People are tired of that.
If that's the case, why is half the country supporting him? Why is he beating you in a lot of swing states? Why?
No one should be able to just come freely into the borders. No other country that I could think of has that, and it's for security purposes.
How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but just a number. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions...
I'm not finished. We have an
it's a rough estimate of 6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish up.
I think that she doesn't even want to say how many illegal immigrants have really crossed over that border. I mean, it's embarrassing to her whole Biden-Harris administration. To see that she's doing such a poor job, it's just not a good look.
When you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, the first bill that we offered Congress was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the...
Yes, ma'am. May I finish responding, please? But you have to let me finish,
You had the White House and the Senate,
and they didn't bring up that bill.
So her saying that it's in the beginning of the presidency, it makes me assume that they're talking about the border bill that the Biden administration tried to pass in 2021, which from my knowledge, what I can remember is that they were trying to make it easier for people who are on working visas and maybe, I think it was illegal immigrants, but who have been here working for, I think, over like 5 years or something like that. If y'all know more information about that 2021 border bill, go ahead and leave more information in the comments. We would like to have more knowledge on that. But I really don't know why it didn't get passed. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think it was majority Democrats in Congress at that time as well. Yes, I don't see a problem with that. I don't know why it did not get passed.
Including to address our asylum system and put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points. That's the work we did, and we worked on supporting what was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, to actually strengthen the border. That border bill would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border, which is why I believe the Border Patrol agents supported the bill. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States, which is a scourge affecting people of every background, every geographic location in our country, killing people. It would have allowed us to put more resources into prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, which I have done as the Attorney General, former Attorney General of a border state.
Madam Vice President, a couple of things.
Prosecuted trafficking of drugs, guns, and human beings. And Donald Trump, but let me just finish.
6 Democrats voted against that bill.
Learned about that bill and told them to kill it because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And in this
with the border act of this year, not only did some Democrats vote against it, there is an aid to Ukraine that was worth $60 billion. And this is one of the reasons why I think the Republicans denied this border act.
Is focused on fixing
6 Democrats voted against that bill. It would have allowed 1.8 million illegal immigrants into the country a year. A lot of conservatives had a problem with it. These are the 6 Democrats. But more importantly, back to the original premise, Jocelyn Nungari, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened, this is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe
Bret,
those families an apology?
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred. So that is true. It is also true that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents at the border to ensure that no future harm would occur. There was a solution, Bret.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungare's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early days. So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying.
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss, sincerely. But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in solutions.
I don't like the fact that yes, she apologized, but it didn't seem very sincere, because the second that she was able to, she kind of just turned it right back to Trump. Like, oh, he blocked this bill. Well, he didn't block the 2021 bill. I don't know what happens with the 2021 bill. And the point that the interviewer is trying to make is that maybe if you didn't overturn Trump's policies, having these illegal immigrants detained until we get the paperwork, background checks, things like that, because that's what I've heard. But if that wouldn't have been overturned, then maybe these girls would still be alive. Maybe a lot of this crime wouldn't be happening. We should have background checks on illegal immigrants before we just let them go freely. No one should be able to just come freely into the borders. No other country that I could think of has that, and it's for security purposes.
Prosecuted. They need more resources, and Congress ultimately is the only place that's going to get fixed, Bret.
Well,
that's how this system works.
That's the premise of this question. There were 90-plus executive orders that were rescinded in the first days. Many of those were Trump border policies. I'm not going to stay here because there's other things to talk about, but you frequently talk to the Border Patrol Union for support of that bipartisan bill, and they did. They supported it. But they also just endorsed Donald Trump and said, you've been, quote, a failure with border security. Why do you think they said that?
I think they're frustrated, and I get it. They want support, and that's what that border security bill would have done. These guys.
I think that it's obvious to why they're going with Trump. I mean, during his presidency, he's let in a lot less illegal immigrants than the Biden-Harris administration has, and I mean, I can understand why they're upset, seeing that this is her job of overseeing it and her doing so poorly in it. I just think Trump might be the better fit to take care of this border crisis.
There's a lot of people that look back at what you said in 2019 when you first ran for president. And there have been changes, and you've talked about some of them. When it comes to immigration, you supported allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's license, to qualify for free tuition at universities, to be enrolled in free health care. Do you still support those things?
Listen, that was 5 years ago, and I'm very clear that I will follow the law. I have made that statement over and over again, and as Vice President of the United States, that's exactly what I've done, not to mention before.
If that's the case, you chose a running mate, Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, who signed those very things into state law. So do you support that?
We are very clear, and I am very clear, as is Tim Walz, that we must support and enforce federal law, and that is exactly what we will do.
Okay, I don't like that it seems like she's running away from the question. She's not giving a yes or no answer. And mind you, we called out Trump for doing that same thing whenever they asked him would he do an all-out abortion ban. Even though looking back on it, it kind of made sense because now it's up to the state, so he couldn't do that. But in this case, she would have the power to do that, but she's not giving a yes or no answer. And then, mind you, the whole Tim Walz situation. So she kind of seems stuck on this one.
You've had.
No, but let's be very clear. I'm the only person who's running for president who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations, from the Sinaloa cartel to the Guadalajara cartel to people who have trafficked in guns, drugs, and human beings. I have spent a significant part of my career going after people who present a threat to the safety of the American people and cross our border with the intent of doing us harm and cross our border illegally. And I will do that work as vice president. I take that work quite seriously.
This is a time when voters, especially here in Pennsylvania, are inundated with commercials and ads. They just want it to stop because it's every commercial. But many of them add noise, but a few of them seem to break through. This particular one from the Trump campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
So are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law, and it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition surgeries
you know what, you got to
happened
take
during
responsible for what
his
happened in
presidency.
your administration.
Yeah, no surgeries happened in his presidency.
It's in
So
black and white.
would you still advocate for using taxpayer dollars for gender reassignment surgeries?
I will follow the law, just as I
you have a
think
say
Donald
in
Trump would
this.
say he did.
Yeah, that's crazy. As taxpayers, we shouldn't have to pay for somebody else's sex change, especially people who are in jail and prisoners. Like, that's absolutely ridiculous. And secondly, she's sitting up here running away from a yes or no question. She's not answering the question. And then thirdly, instead of actually answering the question, she's sitting up here saying that Trump actually let that happen during his presidency. And the interviewer stated that it didn't happen.
American people, I'm offering a plan to deal with affordable housing. I'm offering a plan to deal with what we need to do to strengthen small businesses, which are the backbone of America's economy. I am offering a plan that is about taking care of young parents and giving them the support they need. My plans for the economy will strengthen the economy, as have been reviewed by 16 Nobel laureates, Goldman Sachs, Moody's, and recently the Wall Street Journal, which have all studied our plans and have indicated my plans for our economy would strengthen our economy, his would make them weaker,
Why do you
would
think more
ignite
people
inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year. Those are the facts.
Why do you think more people say they trust him on the economy than they trust you?
I think that when you look at an analysis of our plans for what we would do as President of the United States, it has been clear to those who study and understand how economic policy works that moving forward, because I do believe the American people are ready to turn the page on the divisiveness and the type of rhetoric that has come out of Donald Trump. People are ready to chart a new way forward, and they want a president who has a plan for the future and a plan that is sound and will strengthen our country. His plan would be, again, to give tax cuts to billionaires and the biggest corporations in our country and blow up our deficit.
I think the reason why people seem to be trusting Trump more with the economy is because he, from what from most people here on the surface, at least from what I even hear, is a lot of it's about making money. A lot of hers is about spending money, giving money. So it's like, okay, for example, we're going to be paying for all of this stuff, all of this government-funded stuff is not actually government-funded. It's taxpayer-funded, let's be honest. And meanwhile, Trump is trying to do away with taking taxes from us, as much taxes from us, and find a different way to make up with that money. Everybody has different opinions on his methods, but I'm assuming that that's why more people were kind of putting their trust into him as far as their money goes, because he is trying to make money, not give away money.
In recent days, your campaign slogan is a new way forward, and it's time to turn the page. You've been vice president for 3.5 years, so what are you turning the page from?
Well, first of all, turning the page from the last decade in which we've been burdened with the kind of rhetoric coming from Donald Trump that has been designed and implemented to divide our country and have Americans literally point fingers at each other. The strength of an American president, which is one who understands that the vast majority of us have more in common than what separates us.
Madam Vice President, more than 70% of people
that is
tell
about turning the
pollsters-
page on rhetoric that people are frankly exhausted of, Bret.
More than
People are
70% of people
exhausted.
tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about.
Yeah, me personally, I don't know what she's talking about either. The point she made is it doesn't make any I'm just speechless to that. Like, I don't even know what to say.
Like, you've actually been in office and you're bringing up the fact that Trump was running.
Yeah.
Those are two different things.
They're two completely different things. And
it's not even relevant, because what has Trump done that you couldn't have done?
Exactly.
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade, people have become. But listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me, the former chief of staff to the president, Donald Trump, former defense secretaries, national security advisor, and his vice president, one, that he is unfit to serve, that he is unstable, that he is dangerous, and that people are exhausted with someone who professes to be a leader who spends full time demeaning and engaging in personal grievances and it being about him instead of the American people. People are tired of that.
If that's the case, why is half the country supporting him? Why is he beating you in a lot of swing states? Why, if he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States? Why is that happening?
Yep, that's the big question. I mean, if he's such a bad person, if he's so dangerous to America,
why is America choosing him?
Why is America choosing him?
Yeah, it's pretty close, like 48-50 and then 50-48.
Yeah, and even in the black community, I mean, there are more people in the black community changing their vote to go the Republican route and go to Trump instead of Kamala.
Yeah, I see it in the Hispanic community also. Like, they're making the switch because the traditional values that blacks and Hispanics grew up on don't really align with the liberal agenda. If we're being honest, we're raised more traditionally and conservatively, and we just never voted that way because we were kind of told how to vote. But now we're having our own voices.
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
it's not supposed to be. It is not supposed to be a cakewalk for anyone.
So are they misguided, the 50%?
Listen,
are they stupid? What is it?
I would never say that about the American people.
I don't know if y'all saw the clip that she said ages 18 and 24 are stupid. I know she was talking about prisoners at that time, but I know everybody's thinking about that whenever she said.
And in fact, if you listen to Donald Trump, if you watch any of his rallies, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle and diminish the American people. He's the one who talks about an enemy within, an enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
We asked that question to the former president today. Harris Faulkner had a town hall, and this is how he responded.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So,
Bret, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
He was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you,
that was the question that we asked him.
He didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the president of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it. And this is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a threat to the United States of America.
He's quoted in the Bob Woodward book that way, yes. Let me ask you this, Madam Vice President. You call Donald Trump... You call Donald Trump... he's misguided. You say now he's unstable.
He is unstable, Bret.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Bret, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
but
is.
You talked about it.
And Donald Trump
After George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken out, even people who worked for him in the Oval Office, worked with him in the Situation Room, and have said he is unfit and dangerous and should never be president of the United States again, including his former vice president, which is why the job was open for him to choose another running mate.
So first off, I just want to touch on, I think it's kind of wild that Kamala is saying that Biden is more competent than Trump. But another thing that's wild is I've seen an article saying that Trump was pretty much in agreement with someone saying, let's Mike Pence to execute him. So, yeah, I don't know. I think all politicians are kind of loony. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
But Biden that man is halfway there. I'm sorry. He has half a brain.
Two more things. You were asked on 60 Minutes about the biggest threat that the world faces, that the U.S. faces. This is what you said.
Which foreign country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. Iran has American blood on their hands, okay? This attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles. What we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
A number of experts thought you would say China. The FBI director had said that. But you said Iran. If that's the case, what do you say to critics who look at the actions of your administration and say you're not acting like Iran is the number one threat?
Well, I will tell you most recently, whether it was in April or in October, in the several hours on each occasion that Iran posed a threat to Israel, I was there. Most recently in the Situation Room, in the most recent attack, working with the heads of our military and doing what America must always do to defend and to support Israel in its requirement to defend itself and to give American support to be able to allow Israel to have the resources to defend itself against attack, including from Iran and Iran's terrorist proxies in the region.
Right.
And that is, and my commitment to that is unyielding and unwavering.
Critics just say that you either relaxed or failed to enforce sanctions on Iran, allowing all of this money to flow into Iran, like billions.
Let's go back to Donald Trump, who pulled out of a deal that would have actually put
the whole Iran and Israel situation. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of try to stay out of it. I don't say much about it, but y'all let me know what y'all have heard about it. I don't know. I think that we should kind of stay out of a lot of that. The whole Israel-Palestine situation we should stay out of. But let me get to this, what he just said right now about allowing Iran their funds. Because I heard this about Obama. That Obama actually, how do I put it? Because I learned this about Obama a while back, where apparently Iran's pretty much like, I guess, their assets or whatever, and everything was kind of froze. He allowed them to have access to that money. There was rumors saying that he gave them a whole bunch of money, but not necessarily, but he did allow them to have access to a whole bunch of funds, which they then winded up using to make weapons against us, which caused the whole situation where Trump had to take out that general. Like it caused a lot of things, and Obama did that to kind of keep the peace, but I don't agree with his tactics on allowing that to happen at all.
That would have actually put Iran in check.
The estimates in billions.
It was during Donald Trump's
that
administration
go
that
the Iran regime.
That we had an American military base that was attacked, where American soldiers suffered traumatic brain injuries, and Donald Trump dismissed them as headaches. Not to mention how Donald Trump has treated and talked about America's military and military service people, calling them suckers and losers,
Hamas,
has diminished the significance.
We're talking over each other. I apologize.
I would like that we would have a conversation that is grounded in full assessment of the facts.
Yes, ma'am.
And on the subject of Iran, I am offering what should be an important contrast that is presented for folks to make a
And
decision
there are critics
that they feel.
who look at what the administration did and say and think differently. Madam Vice President, they're wrapping me very hard here. I hope you got to say what you wanted to say about Donald Trump. There are a lot of things
There's more to say. I have
there,
much more
there
to
are
say,
a lot of
actually.
things that people want to learn about you and your policies, and
Yes.
that's why we
I
invited
invite
you
everyone
here.
to go to KamalaHarris.com, and you will see that I have 80 pages of policies that are quite comprehensive and should be accessible to anyone who would like to read them. And it includes what I intend to do about affordable housing, what I intend to do about small businesses, what I do
And that's why
intend
we
to do to
invited you
strengthen
here,
our economy,
to see where you were in 2019 and where you are
support
now.
America's military and ensure we have the most lethal and best fighting force in the world.
Madam Vice President,
And
they're giving me a hard rap
Well,
here.
I thank you for the time.
I thank you for the time.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean.
Now that's what I'm talking about. To see concrete, full policies up. I didn't even know she had this up, but
Yeah, I'm glad she's showing it now
I am
because
really glad she's showing her policies. So, I mean, kudos to her.
And even though I don't agree with 100% everything that she said,
Yeah.
I like the fact that she stood her ground. Like, she's like, hey, let me finish. Even though some of her answers were very long-winded, she was like, hey, let me finish. I'm going to say what I got to say. One thing I will say, though, that she kind of always does is she talks more about Trump than herself. That's why I'm glad that she put out the website, like you stated, because we need to see and hear more policies. I've only heard the $20,000 housing policy, that tax one for children, for the
No tax on tips too.
no tax on tips that Trump said first,
Yeah.
but that's whatever. Long story short, I've been hearing like the same 3 or 4 different policies, and I would like to look into more, and at least you put that out there so everyone can look into more and actually vote based off of these policies instead of just voting on what you hear.
But that's the end of the video, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.